5 days. That's how long the man who took Michaela Garecht had been out of prison before he did it again. Nobody in that parking lot knew his name yet. It would take 32 years before anyone did. You are standing in the parking lot of the Rainbow Market in Hayward, California. It's the Saturday before Thanksgiving, 1988. The air still has that early morning chill that hasn't decided yet whether it's going to burn off. 2 9-year-old girls have ridden their scooters here with $5 between them. Mountain Dew, Laffy Taffy, beef jerky, the kind of shopping list only a 9-year-old could assemble. They live across the street from each other. That morning, before any of this, they'd been at one of their houses fixing each other's hair, practicing for a Christmas pageant that was still more than a month away. It was that kind of excitement. Ordinary. Small. The kind you don't remember choosing to be happy about. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're back again, thank you for coming back. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell now before we go any further, because this is a case you're going to want to see through to the end. Michaela Garecht was the kind of 9-year-old who noticed things. Her mother would later describe her as thoughtful in a way that surprised people. Not a serious kid exactly, just one who paid attention. She'd made this walk to the Rainbow Market before, a few blocks from home, usually with older girls from the neighborhood keeping an eye on her. It was familiar ground. That's what made it safe. The girls go inside. They buy their candy, their soda, their jerky. They come back out into the parking lot expecting to find their scooters exactly where they left them. One of them isn't. It's been moved, pushed back away from the store entrance into the far corner of the lot, tucked behind a parked car. Michaela walks over to get it. A man is waiting there. He grabs her. He forces her into the front seat of an older American sedan, and he drives away. Her friend runs back into the store, screaming for help. By the time the clerk makes it outside, there is nothing left to see. No car. No girl. Moved for a reason no one in that parking lot understood yet. Here's where we have to be honest with you. The descriptions that came out of that morning don't agree with each other, not because anyone was lying, but because that's what trauma does to memory. The man was described as being in his early 30s in some accounts, and as young as 18 in others. The car has been described 3 different ways across the record. A gold or brown Oldsmobile missing its hubcaps, simply an older American-made sedan, and, in a third version, a large sedan in cream, gold, or tan, possibly with cement spatter on its sides and a battered front bumper, like it had been in an accident once and never fully recovered. We're not going to pretend one of these is the truth and the others are wrong. All we can tell you is what multiple witnesses said, and let you sit with the fact that even now none of it fully lines up. Police were notified within minutes. Some records say 10:15. Others say 10:23. 8 minutes doesn't sound like much until you understand that 8 minutes, on that particular morning, was the difference between a car still on Mission Boulevard and a car already gone. Here is what nobody standing in that parking lot knew. The man behind the wheel had been released from prison 5 days earlier. And on that exact morning, at that exact hour, he was less than 500 feet away, visiting a grave. Within hours, the parking lot outside the Rainbow Market had become a staging ground. Hayward PD and the FBI mobilized together, and the tips started coming in, hundreds of them, then thousands, the way they always do in the first frantic days of a case like this. Somewhere in all of that noise was one piece of evidence that would outlast every tip line and every dead end for the next 32 years. A partial palm print and a partial thumbprint, lifted from Michaela's scooter. Not a name. Not a face. Just ridges and whorls sitting in an evidence file waiting for technology and time to catch up to them. By 1992, the case had gone quiet in the way cold cases go quiet. Not forgotten, just unanswered. That year, a prison inmate came forward claiming he knew where a body was buried. Investigators followed it. It led nowhere. By 1994, police had worked through more than 15,000 leads. 15,000 phone calls, letters, tips, hunches, 15,000 doors that all eventually closed. Instead of 5,000 leads, there was eventually one. The case surfaced again and again over the years, usually borrowed from someone else's headline. In 2009, the recovery of J.C. Dugard, found alive after 18 years, put every unsolved Bay Area child abduction back under a spotlight, Michaela's included. In 2011, investigators questioned the Garridos, Dugard's captors, about a possible connection to Michaela. It went nowhere. In February 2012, bone fragments turned up in a well in Linden, California, the same well where the so-called speed freak killers had disposed of victims. For a moment, it seemed possible the search was finally over. DNA testing ruled Michaela out. In August 2012, one of those same killers, Wesley Sherman, suggested the composite sketch of Michaela's abductor resembled his former partner, Loren Herzog. That too faded. And somewhere in those years came one of the cruelest false dawns of all, not from investigators but from a stranger. A woman living with amnesia found her way to Sharon Murch on Facebook, believing or hoping that she might be Michaela. Murch pursued it and eventually determined it wasn't her. Other names moved through the case and out of it over the decades. Curtis Dean Anderson, Richard Hellwig, Timothy Bindner, the speed freak killers themselves. Investigated. Clear. None of it was relevant to the case. While all of that searching was happening, the man responsible was not hiding. He was living in plain sight, generating a paper trail that, in hindsight, reads less like a series of isolated incidents and more like a warning nobody connected. In 1977, when he was 16 years old, David Misch broke into a house cleaner's presence with a knife, raped her, and tried to strangle her. She fought him off. Because he was a juvenile, he served roughly 2 years. In 1979, days, not months, days, after his release, he broke into a neighbor's home and threatened a woman and her 2 young children with a knife. He didn't harm them. He was arrested again, and this time a psychiatric evaluation found him legally insane. He was committed to a Atascadero State Hospital. In September 1981, doctors decided he was no longer a danger. He was released. He moved to Hayward. In June 1982, he attacked an 18-year-old exchange student named Bettina Benthaz in the Oakland Hills, grabbed her, injured her, tried to drag her toward a driveway. Neighbors intervened. They remembered the name on his truck and gave it to police, who traced it back to him. He was convicted of assault and attempted rape. He served 4 years. In 1985, he was arrested for indecent exposure, found driving naked through the streets of Oakland. By 1986, he was under suspicion for a string of drug and burglary incidents, enough that a diversion program was being considered for him instead of prison. That same month, February 1986, he murdered 18-year-old Michelle Xavier and 20-year-old Jennifer Dewey near Mill Creek Road in Fremont. He would not be charged for that crime for more than 3 decades. In May 1988, he was convicted of burglary. 1 year plus probation. He was paroled in November of 1988, 5 days before Michaela Garecht was taken. On November 19, 1988, Michaela was taken. 3 days after the abduction, he was stopped in a routine vehicle check, and police found wire cutters, an axe, a large penknife, and a flashlight in his car. That led to a theft/burglary charge, on which he was convicted in April 1989 and served 17 months at San Quentin. And somehow, still, that wasn't the thing that caught him. By the time Michaela went back for her scooter, David Misch had already raped a woman at knife point, broken into a home to threaten a mother and her 2 children, attacked a teenage exchange student, and killed twice. He had been free for just 5 days. Here is the detail that, once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear. According to the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, Misch's own account of that morning places him at Chapel of the Chimes Cemetery, directly across the street from the Rainbow Market, visiting the grave of his infant son on what would have been the boy's first birthday. We want to be careful with this because it deserves care. This is not a confession. It's Misch's own stated explanation for his whereabouts that morning. What it does, unambiguously, is place him at the scene, by his own words, at the exact hour Michaela disappeared. On December 21, 2020, 32 years after Michaela vanished, Hayward Police, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, and the FBI stood in front of cameras and announced that David Misch had been charged with her kidnapping and murder. The break, they said, traced back to that palm print on the scooter. According to one account, the match wasn't made through an automated database at all. It was made by an examiner's eye, comparing print to print, ridge to ridge. That detail matters twice over. It's the reason investigators say they finally identified him, and it's the exact detail Misch's defense has since pointed to as the weakest link in the entire case against him. Finding him wasn't hard. He was already serving 18 years to life for a murder committed the year after Michaela disappeared, which we'll get to in a moment. He was charged with murder, along with special circumstance allegations that, combined across all 3 of his cases, exposed him at the time to the possibility of a death sentence. That earlier conviction deserves its own moment, because most retellings of this case mention it only in passing. In December 1989, David Misch murdered 36-year-old Margaret Ball inside her own home, in an unincorporated part of Hayward. She wasn't a stranger to him. She was an acquaintance, someone who'd hired him for occasional work, and family members later said he had harassed and threatened her before. He was found with her car. Her body showed signs of a severe beating and a stabbing. His father would later testify, under oath, that David had come home and confessed, told him he'd killed her during a methamphetamine-fueled robbery. Mish's own account, when he eventually gave one, was different. That the two of them had been having a consensual encounter that turned violent when she asked him to stop. He was convicted in 1990. Sentenced to 18 years to life. He has been denied parole at least once in the years since. The case file suggests more than once, though we want to be precise rather than approximate here, so we'll only say what's been confirmed. He has never walked out of that sentence a free man. He wouldn't stay quiet about Michaela's case either. Not the way you'd expect from someone hoping to avoid more attention. But that part of the story comes later. Prosecutors wanted to try both cases together. The Fremont murders and Michaela's kidnapping. Arguing they showed the same pattern, the same man. The defense pushed back. A judge agreed with the defense. The cases would be severed. Fremont first. Garecht second. One detail from those pretrial proceedings is worth pausing on, not because it changes anything but because it's honest to include it. While weighing the Fremont case, the judge overseeing it raised the possibility that a second person had been involved. Someone identified in court filings only as a former Fremont or Union City police officer. His reasoning was simple. He didn't believe the two women would have driven up that remote road with a stranger. It's an unresolved thread. It didn't change the trial's outcome. We're telling you about it because leaving it out would mean pretending the record is cleaner than it is. The trial for Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey ran from October to December of 2024. The evidence was specific. DNA recovered from underneath Jennifer Dewey's fingernails matched David Mish. Numbers written on Michelle Xavier's hand, something she'd scrawled herself in what must have been her last conscious act of self-preservation, were traced back to a motorcycle license plate registered to him. Mish's defense didn't try to explain away the DNA. Instead, he told police in a 2017 interview that he'd been pumping gas nearby and had seen the two women being abducted, and that he tried to help. It was on its face an explanation for his DNA that stopped short of admitting guilt. But investigators noticed something in that same interview. He described a location connected to the case that they had never disclosed to him. Days after that 2017 interview, Mish attempted suicide in his jail cell. He left a note for his brother, one that, in part, said the act would spare his family from what he called the circus that would follow. We're paraphrasing that line deliberately rather than quoting it in full, because some of what he wrote runs longer than a passage like this should carry word for word. What matters is what it suggests. A man who understood, even then, exactly what was coming. On December 19, 2024, the jury found him guilty on both counts. He was sentenced on January 21, 2025, to 2 consecutive 25 years to life terms. During his sentencing, while the families of Michelle Xavier and Jennifer Dewey were reading their victim impact statements, Mish began singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall. He had to be removed from the courtroom. We're not going to add commentary to that. It speaks for itself. In January 2023, incoming Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price made a decision that split a community that had waited decades for answers. She dropped the special circumstance allegations across all 3 of Mish's cases, the ones that had kept life without parole and the death penalty on the table. Reaction split immediately. Mark Kloss, a child safety advocate whose own daughter Polly was kidnapped and killed in 1993, called the decision a complete and total betrayal. On the other side, defense attorney Ernie Castillo said the move simply acknowledged how weak the underlying forensic case actually was. Critics raised something else too, something that lands differently once you know Michaela was never found. Removing those special circumstances also removed a piece of leverage. A reason for Mish to ever say where she is. Sharon Murch moved to rural Iowa. Around that same time, her breast cancer returned, stage 4 metastatic. She did not attend Mish's preliminary hearings. Her reasoning was simple. He has nothing to say that she wants to hear. She's been honest that she isn't sure she wants to know the specific, gruesome details of what happened to her daughter. Some doors, even after 37 years, she's chosen not to open. But she has said one thing publicly about Michaela's remains, that wherever those remains are, Michaela isn't in them. And she said, more than once, that none of this has ever been about her own feelings. It was always about Michaela. As of the most recent reporting, David Mish is convicted and sentenced in both the Margaret Ball case and the Xavier Dewey case. He remains in custody at Santa Rita Jail, awaiting trial for the one case that's never gone before a jury, the kidnapping and murder of Michaela Garecht. That trial date has moved more than once already, and it may move again before it happens. He has never confessed to killing her. If this is the kind of story you want to keep following, the ones that don't wrap up neatly, the ones where the people left behind are still waiting, subscribe and turn on notifications so you're here for the verdict when it finally comes. And whatever the outcome of that trial ends up being, know where your children are. Teach them it is never wrong to speak up, even to a stranger, even in a parking lot that feels as safe as this one did. She was 9. She'd spent that morning fixing her hair for a Christmas pageant she never got to attend. The print on her scooter sat in an evidence file for 32 years, while the man who left it there lived free, with the hard cases instead of scrolling past them. That matters more than any number we could put on screen. So here's what we're asking. Not for you, for her. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because when Michaela Garecht's trial finally happens, we're going to be there covering it, and you should be too. Cases like this don't stay in the headlines for long. They need people who keep showing up. And before you go, do the one thing that costs nothing and might matter more than anything else in this video. Talk to the kids in your life. Not with fear, just with the truth. It is never wrong to speak up, never wrong to scream, never wrong to run, even from someone who seems safe, even in a parking lot 2 blocks from home.